and you see the big black bars are the world's gold production, and the red bars are South Africa's production. And South Africa's production peaked about 30 years ago, and the world's gold production peaked in 2001, and now China is in fact the largest gold producer on the planet. So I just wanted to bring that sort of analogy to the gold analogy to the oil table, and then to look at see how food and gold and mining and metallurgy in fact act quite the same. Production of food and minerals has responded to the application of better technology and oil driven growth and processing methods. So I mean the actual application of oil to the minerals industry has expanded minerals production, just as the application of oil to the food industry has, as we learned yesterday, expanded food production through the Green Revolution. And it's often been said that agriculture is effectively a way of turning oil into food. So that leaves the question, with peak oil arriving, what happens next? Somehow or other the tables are not showing up on this, but what this the table there should have shown is in fact that the supply of the grain stocks in the world have been falling over the last decade, and the price of grain has been rising. And we've already seen food riots in Mexico and Kazakhstan, different parts of the world. China, there have been riots because of a lack of food. Food prices, as we learned earlier this morning, have also risen to record levels. And wheat prices well over $10 a bushel. Corn prices have risen from like $1.50 to nearly $5 as people, are basically sequestering these grains for use in biofuels, as well as trying to use them in the normal mechanisms. So again, one of my better lines used this morning: no magic pudding. The planet is clearly not a magic pudding. We're now coming up against the limits to production, and because of our numbers and the unsustainable demands we place on the environment, with effectively 4.7 billion new people on the planet in my lifetime, after it took all of creation to get to sort of 2.5 billion by the time I was born. So after a secular decline in real prices for commodities through the 20th century, and most notably in the 1990s, there's been an underinvestment in the means of production. Demand pressures and the rising wealth expands, as demand pressures and rising wealth expands. In 1990, perhaps 300 of those 2 billion people were in the economy as such, and the rest of the people were effectively just subsisting. And today, we've got many, many more people in the real economy playing part in that, and there's another 2 billion knocking on the door wanting to be active consumers. It's a shame that this graph doesn't show up, but what it shows is that I should have had a run through before I stood up here with it, but also I had a nice graph here that's showing the world's population rising gradually to about the 1870 to the 17th century, 18th century, and then with the first oil well discovered in Texas in 1857, although oil was obviously known about before then, but they say, well, oil was discovered in 1857. Well, I mean, been used for thousands of years, but that was the beginning notionally of the oil age. And so in the last 150 years, the world's population has grown dramatically, and I think there's a clear link between the availability of effectively cheap, effectively free energy and the rise of population, because that oil has gone into the Green Revolution. That oil has gone into many things which have enabled the world's production to expand. So here are the hot spots. Here are where the people are. They're in Brazil, they're in Nigeria, they're in Europe, Central Asia, China, and in Java, where there's like 3 times Australia's population. So really it's a chilling thought to think that probably 1 in 15 people who have ever trodden this planet are currently on the planet now, with estimates of somewhere between 90 and 110 billion people in total have ever lived. So take a middle point, we've got about 1 in 15 people who have ever lived who are with us. I don't know how the Buddhists work that out, but that's the way the maths sit, and really the world is now adding about 3.5 times the population of Australia every year. 40% of those people living in Brazil, India and China, and those people are getting richer. And this graph is an interesting one because it shows South Korea and Taiwan's trajectory over the last 25 years, and then you've got the orange line, which is China, and that shows China from just 1995. It's on the same trajectory of GDP growth per capita, and then we know that as that GDP per capita grows in China, so will their consumption of commodities, food, protein and so forth. Luckily this graph does show up. It shows that global consumption for grain and animal feed and biodiesel, while food grains are steady on a per capita basis. And here we have a yield expansion, maybe at an end, where we've had the green revolution, which was all this extra mechanisation, extra seed genetics, plant genetics, irrigation and so forth. That yield expansion may well be at an end, and we're going to need more acreage to meet the rising demand. But what we're seeing from the experts is that in fact this extra acreage is going to oilseed for biodiesel and other fuel crops. So it's going to leave little on the plate. Again, this shows contribution to the increase in global corn consumption, and the green bars there show certainly in the last 3 years the contribution from the United States of using corn for ethanol production. And when you think about it, the price signal for this came in about 2000, 2001, and by the time you think about it, by the time you get the money in the ground, by the time you get yourself organised, it takes 3 or 4 years, and so that's why it's starting to kick in 2005 big time. Meanwhile, China struggles with its to keep up. The arable land per person is not rising, and food production struggles to keep up with demand as yields sort of struggle to move ahead. So where is this leading? The rate of species decline has been compared really with the Jurassic Cretaceous block, when the world was whacked by a big meteorite and everything larger than a small dog died within, I'm guessing, months or years at most. We in 150 years have been steadily destroying species on the biodiversity of this planet, and it could be compared really to a meteorite strike, because in geological time it's an instant, and 200 years is an instant. So humans have been around for about 100,000 years, I'm guessing, with hominids maybe 4 or 5 million years. Go to the Olduvai Gorge. We've made a major impact in the last 10,000 years, as we heard this morning, with the Anthropocene and changing of the environment. 70% of fish stocks destroyed, growing dead spots in the ocean, rising salt, climate change, let's call it global warming. So what are the implications for all this? We'll get down to the nitty-gritty. It's true that an orderly society, along with critical mass of population, with enlightened or benign rulership, can provide improvements to education, medicine, the arts, science, and generally science generally, which flows on to the increase in human well-being. A localised critical mass of human society combined with intelligent leadership has led to many of the world's most significant advancements in human well-being. Yet large populations in Nigeria, Bangladesh and Mexico's present-day India, Brazil and Java deliver nothing but misery. Big advances have come with revolutions in the use of energy, be it harnessing animals for farm work or the application of steam to industry and transport, and ultimately the use of oil.